Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to draw realistic eyes with colored pencils, step by step. So this is actually part of a portrait series I'm currently working on. In my next upload, I'm going to be taking you through how I made the full drawing from start to finish. So if you're interested, you might want to subscribe so you don't miss it. But like I said, today we are concentrating on the eyes. So step 1 is the outline. I've always said that the outline is the most important part of a realistic drawing in my opinion. So you want to make sure your outlines are accurate. I have got an entire video on how to draw outlines, so you might want to check that out after this video. This is a final sketch or outline. Step 2 is color selection. I compare the colors in the reference to my color swatches and choose appropriate colors based on how close the colors in the reference are to my swatches. We'll talk a lot more about color as we go on. Now let's start coloring. I always start with the iris and pupil before moving to the white of the eye and then the skin around the eyes. It's very important to pay close attention to the details in the eyes. Every eye will be different, and this is one of the reasons why your outlines need to be accurate with regards to the reference. You need to represent the shapes within the iris as closely as you can to the reference. However, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect, so study the reference closely and then color accordingly. When I do human portrait, I like to blend using the burnishing technique, and this is where you layer your colored pencils from light to dark and then apply a little more pressure as you get to the final layers to blend everything together. However, in a few instances like the eyeball, I sometimes blend using a solvent like you see me do here. This is because I find it gives a very smooth look, and the eyeball is a very smooth and kind of glossy facial feature. So I blended the initial elements of the iris with a solvent using a very small brush. If you look closely at the reference, you can tell there's a reflection of the eyelashes in the iris, and blending with the solvent will also help me achieve this detail more easily. The white of the eye is almost never white. It usually has a grey or very light pinkish tone to it. In this case, it had more of a pinkish tone. So I applied the light pink color to it and blended it out using the solvent again to create that smooth look. Also, I'm using a rough or vellum surface paper, so using the solvent helps to easily achieve that smooth look. Now I'm creating the reflections of the eyelashes within the iris. It is crucial to pay attention to tiny details like this, as they help to achieve or give that overall realistic look. Here, I'm looking at my reference and making tiny adjustments where I need to, and also drawing in details like the tiny veins in the white of the eye. These may all look subtle, but it's the tiny details that really make your drawing pop. The fourth step is when we draw the skin surrounding the eyes, and then draw in other features like the eyelashes and the eyebrows. So I use the layering technique here. I identify the lightest color of the skin and then use that as my base layer. What that means is I'll be layering other colors on top of the base layer or color. You need to closely study the skin. It is made up of different colors even though it may not appear apparent to you. So I layer from light to dark. In this case, my base layer is a patty beige. It's one of the light tones in the Prismacolor set. So I apply it generously across the areas I'm coloring. When I'm done, I go over with the other darker colors. So now I've gotten to my final layers and I'm burnishing to help smoothing everything together. I'm using peach for this. However, I still make sure to leave some amount of the tooth of the paper just so I can make corrections if I want to. Because if I go in with full force and completely blend everything, it will make it very difficult for me to make any changes as the paper would have flattened out completely. On to the eyebrows. Now remember, there is still skin under the eyebrows, so it will not make sense for us to just go in and draw the brows without drawing skin underneath. it will not help with the realistic look we are going for. So I do a few markings with the grey colored pencils with regards to where I'll be drawing in the brows, so I don't lose track of where they are supposed to be. I then use the same colors I used for the skin to draw the skin in the region of the eyebrows. I also make sure to add a bit of grey to create a bit of shadow in that region. The color of the brows will depend on the reference you are working with. In this case, they had a dark grey appearance with some blue hues in certain regions, so pay attention to the reference with regards to the direction and volume of the brows. They usually move in the same direction but are not completely uniform, so try and replicate the little inconsistencies you may see. Here, I'm covering other areas of the skin using the same technique of layering and blending. There are a few more things I'd like to touch on. First, the paper I'm using. This is an important part of the entire process. I'm using the Strathmore Bristol 300 series vellum paper, which has a moderately rough surface. What that means is that it allows me to do multiple layers before the tooth of the paper flattens out completely. And this is necessary in cases where we need to do multiple layers in order to create a realistic look. I also have the smooth surface version of this paper, which is also good for portraits, but only when you do not require a lot of layers in my opinion. Also, don't be so fixated on getting the exact colors in the reference. Just make sure your colors are close enough. The value and contrast you create is more important than the actual color, because realism is created by value and contrast rather than just color. We'll talk a lot more about this in my next upload. If you've enjoyed this so far, don't forget to subscribe for more tips and tutorials. Also give me a like if this has been helpful to you. So now I go over the entire section with the peach color, which has been my blending pencil of choice in this region of the face, this time with a lot more pressure as it is my final layer. On to the eyelashes. Again, we need to focus on the reference and try to replicate what we see. They don't have to be exactly what we see in the reference, they just have to be close enough. However, there are some general features we need to be aware of, and these are direction, color, and volume. Generally, there are fewer lashes in the lower eyelid compared to the upper eyelid. Also, they tend to be darker at the roots, and then as they branch out, they take a lighter tone. Also take note of the direction, they don't all move uniformly in the same direction. Now let's turn our focus to the right eye, which is actually the subject's left eye. Same principles. So as a quick recap, we do the elements in the iris and pupil first. In this image, the pupils are not very distinctive from the irises. This is why you need to pay close attention to the reference. Like I said, every eye is different. We then move on to the white of the eye and then draw the surrounding skin. Always remember, the white of the eye is not truly white. Also, to get a more realistic look, always make sure to draw the skin underneath the eyebrows before drawing the eyebrows in. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.